Hey, good evening. Welcome to Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp. Joel Heitkamp out. Today he'll be back tomorrow. I'm Tyler Axness filling in. Be happy to take you on down the road. Creator, writer of NDExplains.com. Also, talk radio host here on the eastern side of the great state of North Dakota. A lot to get to. In fact, there's been a lot of news within the last 24 hours. Nationally, locally here, we're going to try to cover as many bases as we can. Everything from getting you registered if you want to get that vaccination shot and how you can do so. The Texas weather system that brought down an entire power grid in the great state of Texas. That had a lot of people talking about wind. We're going to be talking about the approach to wind policy in North Dakota with one of those individuals that works with the industry. And also in North Dakota, they're talking about the Equal Rights Amendment that passed in 1972, and it's 2021. I've got to figure out why. We're going to be visiting with a former Republican lawmaker from Illinois who wrote a letter to North Dakota's legislature explaining his view and why they should just drop this whole push. There's all that and there's so much more, but I want to start here because yesterday the House of Representatives out in Washington, D.C. put the final stamp of approval on the American Rescue Plan. That's the $1.9 trillion that President Biden promised that he would get done when he was a candidate and then ultimately elected last election. So he signed it today. There was chatter just all yesterday afternoon that it was going to be Friday. Well, you know what? There's an urgency and a need to get some of this rescue plan out and into people's bank accounts and so much more. And in fact, there is a lot in this bill. We'll touch more on some of the details of what else is in this, but I want to start with one I think that hits home to a lot of people here in North Dakota. There is a long process. And many of us don't have short enough memories. We remember what happened in 2007, 2008 with the market collapse, the financial institutions. Well, they got help. They got bailed out in some moments. And unfortunately, because of those markets, there was some damage done to some pensions. And it's been a long fight ever since to try to make those pensions whole. And guess what? With yesterday's passage and today's signing, those pensions are going to be made whole. And right here in North Dakota, there's going to be at least 2,000 people that are benefiting from this very delayed act. Minnesota viewers as well going to be benefiting from this as well. And I want to bring this home with somebody who is going to be a part of this relief, who has worked hard along with a lot of other brothers and sisters to get this done. Joining me right now on Down the Road is Steve Nolan. He is one of those individuals that's been working tirelessly to make this happen for all the work that you've done over the years, Steve, and I want to thank you for joining me here on Down the Road.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Well, this is one of those situations in which I think there's a lot of emotions, right? This has been a long time coming. So I want to start here. Now that President Biden has signed this, all that work is finally behind you. How does that feel, Steve?
Feels great. Yesterday was a really good day for us. It's something we started fighting. A lot of guys started 7, 8 years ago when everyone realized, hey, this pension that you have isn't going to be there, and started as a grassroots effort, and that's what it's been all along. You know, a bunch of retired guys. Imagine getting up out of there with their squeaky joints and their stiff backs and having to go to Congress and have rallies, and it's really great to finally have the government follow through for us.
Well, and that's because there was a lot of promises made over those years, Steve, and a lot of effort. And I know that you would need to and want to thank some of those individuals. I think of U.S. Senator Heidi Heitkamp, former U.S. Senator. I think about Dennis, who's a mutual friend of ours that has worked tirelessly. I mean, talk about some of the efforts and some of the people that were behind making this become reality.
Yes, Heidi Heitkamp, she was a co-sponsor of the original Butch Lewis Act. Dennis, he organized the effort here in Fargo, and cities all around the country, just people gathered together and for our own interests and those of people who are still working, because they wanted to have their pension be there when they retired. And so, yeah, those guys really got us together, and it was a great effort. And I want to thank everybody that can hear me or see me for constantly calling in to congressmen and sending emails to Congress and to the White House. That it finally paid off after all these years.
Yeah, there's these big issues, Steve. They don't happen overnight. This is one of those things that I think took way longer than what was necessary to correct. And unfortunately, you mentioned there's been people across the country doing this, because I think there's going to be over 400,000 workers that are going to benefit from this passage. And tragically, not everybody that's been a part of this effort is seeing the end line here and the signage that happened today.
You're so right. Along the way, people worried, were they going to be able to live out their life and be able to support themselves, and people worried to the point where they passed away. The stress got to them. Butch Lewis, who this rescue plan was named after, he just a hardworking guy and retired. He went to Congress. He did town halls, and sadly he passed away early on in the fight, and that was a common thing. It's an emotional thing for a lot of people to have lost folks along the way, without, and they weren't given all the dignity they deserved.
Let's talk about what this recovery, this rescue is going to be for this pension. And people, they hear pensions, they've got different notions. There's people, because we've had different work experiences. I sit behind a microphone and talk. I didn't have to, do the rigmarole of, some of the extensive labor. When we're talking UPS, we're talking about True Value and moving those essential products that people now over this last year, because of this pandemic, relied so heavily on some of these frontline workers. Explain some of the work and the people that are going to be benefiting from the pension.
Well, it's a lot of truckers, delivery people that load trucks in warehouses, people that work in manufacturing, baking bread, working in milk plants. Basic essential services to all of us. And if they didn't have their pension, it's not like they can go back to work because they're used to doing physical work. And a lot of people have worn themselves out by the time they retired. People work a long, full career, and it just wouldn't be right to not honor the commitment you made to them for their retirement. So this is a great deal. We finally got it done.
And it was long, hard fought, and it's well deserved. You talk about the hours, the days, the years of which the physical toll on a body, but also the promise, the commitment you guys and gals made to getting into that pension, to get that investment in there, and then because of no fault of your own, but because of stock market situations, the pension took a big hit. To have these years of, look, we did everything we promised ourselves we're going to do, you need to live up to your end, and now finally, Steve.
Sure. Yeah, and it's, we had to give up pay rates, part of our pay raises, so that the company could afford to pay into our pension plans. And actually, 4 decades ago, the government, my pension, the one that I am in, the Central States, which is the biggest one, the federal government took it over and was supposed to take care of it for us, and even insured it with a Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, a form of insurance run by the government, and assigned oversight to 2 branches in the administration. I think it was Treasury and Labor, and so that was supposed to be, somehow along the way it slipped to where it was going to be, insolvent in about 3 years from now. So
you touch on something there that I want to underscore again is while this situation was forced upon you because of the situation of the pensions being impacted, you had to make other sacrifices. You mentioned that you had to forego some pay raises to help cover some of that. So this wasn't just the physical toll, it was the financial toll while you're doing the job and hoping that by the time you get to that retirement age, that pension that your promise was made whole.
yeah,
There was a lot of struggling going on during that time as well, Steve. So, I mean, here we are, finally.
yeah.
Finally.
And along the way there were some, while the plan was being administered, not really overseen real well by the government, but the plan itself, there were cuts along the way to, we were, like when I started working, I had an idea of what I would get after working 30 years, and along the way they changed the ages that you had to work till, they changed, how much you were going to get paid. But then when we got to about 2014 is when it really hit hard, because in the middle of the night in Congress, a representative from southern Minnesota snuck into a budget bill overnight that pension plans could do whatever they wanted to make themselves keep on lasting, and Central States decided that they were going to cut our benefit by 50, 60, 70%. And that's, even guys who are already retired, so was a disaster right from there.
Well, hopefully we made this correct. You mentioned the work of Congress. There's people to thank. You know, and I don't need to pull you into the politics of this. I'm going to get into that a little bit later on in the show. But, you know, we're in North Dakota right now, and unfortunately our 3 delegation members voted against this rescue plan. But there is all this talk about, well, there's a lot of pork in here. And I'm curious, your response. In fact, we've got, I think, what Congressman Kelly Armstrong did say, you know, saying that this little relief is going to Americans, that the Democrats' $1.9 trillion package is a handout to, quote, for radical progressive causes. And Steve, I want to ask you, do you think that this pension fight that you've been undertaking and trying to make sure that you and your family and your friends are whole, is that a radical progressive cause, or is this something that everyone should get behind?
And I told Congressman Armstrong and Senator Hoeven and Senator Kramer, it's an obligation. They assumed it when they took our pension from us 40 years ago. You know, you don't play politics with it. This is something that they have to figure out. And yeah, we had to work hard. We had to work through tough disasters on our careers. Well, you know, you guys took on being leaders of this country. You got to take on this tough chore of fixing our pension plan. And, you know, over the years, they've told us we'll do it. We're going to do it. And then there's probably been 10 or 12 different plans they've come up with, but nobody was ever willing to put it forward. And there was political back and forth on both sides of the aisle. One side said we want you to get everything, and the other side, well, there's gonna have to be a little pain. We have to cut it so that it keeps on going. But even when one side was in power, they didn't put that up for a vote. So finally, look, yesterday it was there to vote for, and it was the answer that nobody came up with a different response to. So I'm glad if the Democrats had to power it through, that's fine with me.
Well, and it's done, and I want to congratulate you because it was earned, Steve. And you send those well wishes from many of these viewers back to the boys and girls that have been waiting so long for this relief. All right.
Sure, and thanks to everybody out there for calling in and fighting for us. Appreciate it.
You bet, Steve. Steve Nolan there, boys and girls. It is one of those days that it was long overdue. We'll talk more about it later on when we come back here on Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp. We're going to talk about the Equal Rights Amendment that's still being discussed in North Dakota.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome back to Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp. I'm Tyler Axness filling in for Joel. He'll be back tomorrow. He'll recap all that happened this week and get you ready for next week. In fact, one of the things that I'm sure he was going to be wanting to talk to you about, I'm glad that I get an opportunity to fill you in on. And for the life of me, I'm going to start off by asking why in 2021 we're still even talking about this very issue of equal rights for women and not allowing for discrimination against women. But yet here we are in North Dakota in 2021, talking about this very issue. And there was a moment earlier on in this legislative session that struck my attention. In fact, it was a letter sent from a Republican lawmaker from another state, not too far away from North Dakota, in fact, from the great state of Illinois. And he joins me right now, former Republican House of Representatives member Steve Andersson. Welcome to Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp. I appreciate you taking time. I know you had to move some things around to make this happen, but welcome to North Dakota.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Just to be clear, I'm still a Republican. I'm a former legislator.
Fair enough. And just full disclosure, I'm a former Democratic state senator in North Dakota. Former, yes, being the title of that as well. But you and I are seeing very much eye to eye on what's going on when it comes to this Equal Rights Amendment. I read your letter to the Senate chamber here in North Dakota. In fact, let's start there. What compelled you to write a letter to North Dakota's legislature when you decided they were going to be talking about repealing their support for the Equal Rights Amendment?
Sure. Well, when I was in the Illinois House, one of my major achievements, one of my proudest achievements, to be perfectly honest, was being the lead Republican sponsor of the Equal Rights Amendment and passing it in Illinois. North Dakota had passed it many, many years ago. Illinois had not. So in 2018, I was very proud to have led that charge as a pro-life Republican, by the way. That is important in this discussion, to get that done. So when I found out that North Dakota had filed, or someone in North Dakota had filed this resolution to attempt to, I suppose, rescind your ratification of it, I felt it necessary to act, and that's what caused me to send the letter.
My question, Steve, and I think there's probably a lot of people out there asking, in fact, I started the segment, why? Why is it 2021 and something that was passed in 1972 that is about equality for men and women? Why are we even having this debate right now? What's this boogeyman argument? I don't understand it. Please, by all means, try to help me figure this out.
Yeah, first, we shouldn't be having it. Back in 1972, when this was originally passed by the Senate and the House, it was in both parties' platforms to pass this. That the Republican platform called for passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. And so I too am somewhat perplexed as why we're still here fighting the issue. But I can tell you there is one thing that happened, and I can say it with one word: abortion. Abortion became the boogeyman of the ERA, and it effectively stopped the ratification in the early 70s. Now, the unfortunate thing is that it's a total lie. I would love to say it better, but I can't, in a nicer way, but I can't. A woman actually from my state named Phyllis Schlafly started this false connection between the ERA and the idea that it would promote abortion on demand anywhere, anytime, all through 9 months, all of which is 100% false. So I took it on me to counter those lies and to reset the narrative and talk about what it's really about, which is simply a defense against big government, right? The idea that government is going to tell us how we're going to live our lives. The Equal Rights Amendment says the opposite. It says stay out of our lives. A very Republican principle, by the way. The idea that we just want to be left alone to succeed or not, as the case may be, for our own efforts.
I'm glad you brought it back to that of what it does and the fact that there are, I mean, that's a Republican principle. That's a principle I hold near and dear as a former Democrat state senator as well. And I don't want to sound partisan by any means here because I invited you on. But one of the observations, at least here in North Dakota, this isn't the first time that they've discussed this. Thankfully, they've pushed back in previous legislative sessions. But I've got to say, Steve, these are Republican resolutions that I see being introduced. And why is that? You being a Republican member, why does it seem as though this is a Republican drum beating that they want to get rid of this Equal Rights Amendment?
I'm disappointed by that. And I've actually formed a coalition called GOP for the ERA in order to counter that narrative. I think what's happened is that the conservative movement is afraid of the issue. They're afraid of what they don't know, what they think that it might mean. For example, I've heard it said, well, if we pass the ERA, we'll have unisex bathrooms everywhere. Transgender rights will explode. None of those things will happen because of the ERA, and I can tell you with certainty that they won't. You know why? Because they haven't. We have state-level ERAs in about 20 states in the union, Illinois being one of them. We've had it for 50 years as a state-level constitutional amendment, not the federal constitutional amendment. So if those ideas, all those horror stories were going to happen, they would have already happened in a variety of states. They didn't happen. Those fears are unfounded.
And I agree. I think that this is based on fear, you say, of the unknown, but it shouldn't be unknown because we're living with it right now. I mean, this is something that has been approved. We've been living with, and this resolution, it's in North Dakota, Senate Concurrent Resolution, I think 4010. If you want to go look it up, you know what, they're going to say, well, this is about timing, and I've only got, speaking of timing, about 3 minutes left with you here, Steve, and I'll let you get back to work there. About timing, that this was never ratified, and that this is just a statement. We want Congress to know how North Dakota feels. I mean, the statement that they're thinking they're making, I don't think lines up with what the average person believes.
No, in fact, we've done polling, and amongst Republicans, there is 90% approval of the concept of the ERA. In fact, about 84% believe it's already part of the Constitution. People believe in this, and so the idea of this rescission really does not reflect normal, everyday Republicans and Democrats, by the way. It's even higher in the Democratic world.
So the end goal, let's say this resolution passes in North Dakota, Congress gets their copy of it, they read it, they throw it in a bin, it collects dust. What is their end goal here with all these states wanting to get rid of this Equal Rights Amendment?
Well, there's not all of these states. There's a few states.
Sure.
Most states are very much in favor of this and working very hard to pass it. I think it's a press piece, to be perfectly honest. They want to get some attention to their beliefs and their cause. That's fine. They're entitled to it, but I'm going to do exactly the same thing. By the way, the result, the actual legal result of the resolution is nothing. Nothing. You can't rescind. It's not legally possible. Once it's passed, it's done. So the effect of their work here is effectively void. It's nothing.
Well, and that's why here we are again in North Dakota, and this is wasting time. It's wasting tax dollars to have these hearings to, go ahead and try to do something that really isn't going to carry a lot of weight, aside from putting on documentation. And we're going to have the roll call votes of who is, in fact, is saying, look, equal rights isn't something I really want in the state of North Dakota. And for the life of me, Steve, that's not something, as a North Dakota resident, I want to get behind.
No, I wouldn't want my name on the wrong side of that history.
Steve, anything else? I appreciate your work doing this and the fact that you got a coalition of fellow Republican members out there saying, look, this isn't what we stand for. In fact, the Equal Rights Amendment is full of Republican values. Final word goes to you with about the 30 seconds I've got left.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on right now. I'm working very hard across the country to make this happen. If your listeners are interested, right now, next week, in Congress, we will be running a bill to repeal this quote-unquote deadline, which was unenforceable anyway. So contact their local representative or their U.S. Congress representatives and urge them to vote yes on the removal of the deadline bill.
Very good. Steve, I appreciate you taking time. You take care over there in Illinois, and we'll check in again soon, all right?
A pleasure. Thank you. you
All
so
right,
much.
you bet. Steve Andersson, former lawmaker, Republican out of Illinois. I got more to say on this and what North Dakota is attempting to do, why we're talking about this in 2021, and I've got to talk a little bit more about that recovery plan. That and more coming up next here on Down the Road.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Beck Communications is now hiring independent sales agents around the state. We're looking for highly motivated individuals to take advantage of this opportunity, selling advertising for our news and sports programming on Beck TV and sponsorships for the Bismarck Bucks indoor football team. Independent sales agents will make 50% commission on their completed sales for all products. Beck TV is the leader in broadcasting local sports, owner of the Bismarck Bucks indoor football team, and originator of newly launched news opinion programming. Submit your application now at careers@bechtel.coop. This is an exciting opportunity you can't pass up. 50% commission for independent sales agents now hiring at Beck Communications.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. When you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Ever been in a cave before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the car! How will we? The car! Your offer has been accepted. Ever bought a house before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the closing. But how will we? The closing!
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to Down the Road. Joel Heitkamp out today. He'll be back tomorrow on Friday's edition. I'm Tyler Axness, creator, writer of NDExplains.com. You can go there, follow up on some of the North Dakota happenings. And, of course, radio host here on the eastern side of the state. And I want to thank our first two guests, Steve Nolan and Steve Andersson, to talk about a couple of pretty big items, both of which are relevant right now today on this Thursday evening because of a couple of reasons. And I'll start with Steve Nolan, who is here to talk about the pension plan. That plan, that recovery, that rescue, was part of the American Rescue Plan that passed Congress on a party line vote earlier this week. In fact, yesterday the House voted for it on a party line. You've got the President of the United States and Joe Biden signing that very document this afternoon. Relief is on the way. Rescue dollars going out to a variety of things. We talked about the pension plan. There's a lot more in that bill. And I know not everybody watching right now here on Beck Television is ecstatic about it, but you're going to see some relief. The $1,400 that was promised, that's in the bill. You're going to get that. Be watching your accounts. The unemployment, for those of you that have been unfortunately without a job due to the pandemic, there's relief that's included in this bill, a continuation of that extended unemployment benefits, $300, I believe, additional a week with the extension going there. If you were out of the job, you lost your health care that was employer-based, there's relief and there's some rescue dollars in there as well. If you're a mayor, if you're a county commissioner, if you're a city council member, Relief is on the way in this rescue plan because there was dollars included in there to help you alleviate some of the essential service budget that you were required to continue to do, all the while some of the revenue that you rely on to do those very basic government services dried up because we were told to stay home. Businesses were closed, many of which against their will, but it was a public health crisis. We lived through it. It's been a year. A year ago today, I believe, is when Governor Doug Burgum said we got to close down because the coronavirus is in the state of North Dakota. That public health crisis, the long road to get that fully vaccinated population, for those that want to do it, it's also created the economic crisis. So when you hear from our delegation, all of whom voted no, and that's Senator Kevin Cramer, Senator John Hoeven, and Congressman Kelly Armstrong, all of them voted no. You saw some of the comments from Congressman Armstrong earlier today saying that this was full of radical, progressive priorities and causes. Well, I don't want to see Congressman Kelly Armstrong or either of our senators at any of those ribbon cuttings or handing out those big checks trying to take credit for the relief in this rescue plan that they did not support. Because that rescue relief is going to get out to these communities as is deserved, and it's going to make a benefit. The issue with the only 9%, 10% as they're using as their talking point, saying only about 10% goes towards the actual pandemic fight, isn't entirely telling the whole story. Yes, there is billions of dollars going to vaccinations. Yes, there's billions of dollars going towards testing. Yes, there's billions of dollars going to contact tracing. But there are also much bigger needs for the economy that was brought down because of this very health crisis that we've been facing for a year. So to try to pickle a parcel out what is good and what is not isn't doing the public a real service. And I'm glad it passed. Is there things in there that maybe could have been waited on another day, like the $15 minimum wage that was struck down because of the rules of the United States Senate? Yeah, that shouldn't have been in there. That should be standing on its own merits. But if you're talking about some of the dollars that are going to local aid, think about the jobs that are going to be created and then also what that does to those small towns. When you're going in, you're buying a burger at the cafe, you're buying a beer at the bar, you're stopping at the gas station, you're visiting with the boys and girls over there. This is going to ripple out, and it is going to help out those that were impacted the most during this pandemic, those frontline workers, the truck drivers, those that were moving the product of our grocery from the stock room all the way out to that front shelf so you can go pick it up and buy it safely. The highway patrol, I mean, it is all right there, and it is all going to get rescued with some of this $1.9 trillion that was approved on a party line vote this week, signed by the President of the United States today. You're going to get some relief, be watching your bank accounts. The other Steve, I want to thank him from Illinois coming on as a Republican to talk about this Equal Rights Amendment. This is one of those things, again, there is really no excuse in 2021 why the North Dakota lawmakers, the Republican North Dakota lawmakers, they're the only ones that are on this bill, are still fighting against equal rights for women. And I know that Steve mentioned, well, it comes down to one word, and he's saying that this was because they somehow believe there's the boogeyman of abortion in this. But in North Dakota, you have some of these members that are trying to sneak this one by you. The reason why we're talking about this today, this Thursday evening, is because today at 2 o'clock, there was on the legislative calendar a hearing that was trying to be snuck in from Representative Jim Casper, Republican of Fargo, because he wanted to rush this amendment. He wanted to make sure that Congress knew how North Dakota felt. And to that, I would say it's not very hard for the world to figure out what some of these lawmakers in North Dakota feel about things. You could look at the front page of the Washington Post, for example, and read about Luke Simons, who was expelled last week. But prior to that, on the front page, we're hearing about the years of harassment towards women that he was allegedly doing, and the excuses that happened on the House floor while the debate was going on from at least 25 members that seemingly would have looked the other way on those harassment allegations, some of which were sitting right next to him while those comments were being made. There's one example as to why this is back in the news. It's about whether or not North Dakota lawmakers actually view women as their equals. I mean, what more examples do you need? We can talk about the excuses that were made in 2017 when we're talking about whether or not the blue laws and whether you can shop before noon and why that was the case. Some of those comments made in 2017 on that House floor, they excuse because of women. Because, you know what, you should be able to stay and sleep in and have your wife bring your breakfast in bed. Do you remember that comment? I do. Or how about the other comment in that same bill in which you had a North Dakota Republican lawmaker coming out and saying, you know what, my wife spends enough of my money in the 6.5 days that businesses are open. Do you remember that comment? Because I do. Or talk about pre-kindergarten and the relief, because you know what, more and more there's both parents are working because they've got to earn the wages to pay for the increased cost of living. And in North Dakota, we didn't have the assistance necessarily for that pre-kindergarten assistance, so both parents could go to work. The excuse on the North Dakota Senate side, and when I was sitting in that very chamber from some of those Republican senators, was the fact that, well, if you allow this, then the mother wouldn't be able to stay at home and bond with that kid and raise that child. As though the mother's the one that's supposed to be staying home, and that's why we weren't going to be doing this relief from a state. Or how about the paid family leave? We hear from lawmakers that we need people to be staying at home with their children, but then we don't allow for the resources for those parents to do that without the fear of losing some of their work, their employment, their earnings. I bring all this up in relation to the Equal Rights Amendment because the question of what their statement is, albeit there's not going to be much done with this resolution aside from putting words on paper, it's whether or not North Dakota lawmakers and those that support the repeal of this Equal Rights Amendment actually view women as their equals, as though they are somehow looked down upon because of all the examples I just had. And I know this doesn't go across the board. There's some great lawmakers in North Dakota on both sides of that political aisle. Many of the women in the Republican caucus have worked very hard to maintain the Equal Rights Amendment. Senator Judy Lee, Republican of West Fargo, comes to mind. She has now had to go and defend this for at least the last 2 sessions. And yet here we are in 2021 talking about equality for women, for men, and whether or not North Dakota as a state believes that it should be that way, or if we're going to condone what would in essence be saying, you know what, we don't think that there is equality, that we could discriminate based on one's sex. That's not me, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that's a majority of you as well. What you need to do is contact your lawmakers, contact the House of Representatives, contact Representative Jim Casper and Kim Koppelman and say, you know what, this is wrong. Do not pass this resolution. We do not need this being documented out in Washington saying that we do not support equality in the great state of North Dakota. There's so much more that we got to get to. In fact, we're going to continue on about the Bismarck legislature. Wind energy has been getting a black eye because of Texas. Is it justified? We'll find out from Bob Harms next, right here on Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp.
Howdy folks, it's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur-rattling pie with a combo roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
When you can't find answers to your recurring health challenges, it can feel like your health and your future are being held hostage. The Wellness Way is a network of health restoration clinics that think and act differently to solve the health challenges others can't. Here, we disrupt the standard approach to care through a combination of testing, individual plans, and one-on-one guidance, putting your health and your future where they belong, in your own hands.
Welcome back to Down the Road. I'm Tyler Axness filling in for Joel Heitkamp. He'll be back tomorrow to take you on down into that weekend and recap the week that was in North Dakota and nationally. It wasn't very long ago that we were talking about the situation down in Texas. In fact, some of you watching right now on Beck Television may have had a rolling brownout, or you may have lost power up here in North Dakota and Minnesota and wondered why in the world are we being impacted down from the situations in Texas. That whole situation in the Texas power grid allowed for the same old song and dance when it comes to wind power, and people are using that crisis to really attack wind energy, saying it's not reliable, saying that we've got to rely on other means of energy. And I thought, this is sounding awfully familiar here in North Dakota, and I wanted to visit with somebody who has been involved with wind energy and the legislature. His name is Bob Harms, and he joins us right now on Down the Road. Bob, welcome. It's been a long time, man. How you been?
Yeah, very good, Tyler. Good seeing you.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. I imagine, it's been so busy because we're now past that halfway point with the legislature, and I've been following along with some of this wind energy, and I've been thinking, man, Bob's got to be pulling his hair out.
Well, so far so good, but the Texas thing did create a new, a little bit of energy, if you will, in the debate about how do we move forward with our energy sector with coal and wind and natural gas, and so that created some interesting discussions that are in full play at the moment.
One of the things that was brought forward in that debate, and it's not new, Bob, I think about in 2017 when the state Senate tried to quietly amend a bill to put a moratorium on new development of wind energy, and they did it in the premise that this is an attempt to save coal. This is where we are again. I mean, we've heard about, some of the Coal Creek stations, and some of the struggles that they've had, and I feel so terrible for those workers out there relying on that industry. Yeah. But is the focus on wind being the major challenge, is that appropriate, or is there more to this story, Bob?
Well, I think there is more to the story, and you talked about Texas, and what happened in Texas is both coal, natural gas, nuclear, wind, all of those energy sources failed to winterize for frigid conditions down there, and they lost about 40% of their generation. That was the sort of the linchpin, and then that same system that created that weather system also affected Southwest Power Pool down in the southern part of the state. Southwest Power Pool is one of the RTOs that manages our electric grid. They were saving their grid so that we ended up having rolling blackouts here in North Dakota, even though wind and natural gas and coal were all operating the way they were supposed to here in North Dakota.
The fight is back right here, though, as far as, we're going to try to limit wind development. I mean, and it's happening sometimes at the county level, and it's happening yet again in some of the rumblings of trying to slow this down, saying, we've got to stop aiding wind because that's going to prop up coal. should they be fighting wind energy? Because, Bob, I recall when the debate was, we're going to put a stop to this for 2 years, the discussion is, well, all right, we'll just go to South Dakota. And why should we miss out on that? Explain where this all rests and some of these challenges that are popping up across some of these counties.
Sure. Well, I think I'd look at it from two perspectives. At the local perspective that McLean County and Mercer County took here last summer, they were essentially saying to wind development, we're so invested in coal, we want to protect those jobs. We understand that, so we're not going to allow any wind development in our area to protect those coal jobs. One of those things was keyed to the transmission line that was part of the Coal Creek infrastructure, and that might work out. Hopefully, there's a buyer that can make that plant work, and maybe that strategy will be successful. But from a broader perspective, I think that's the better place for the state policymakers, even the industries, to go to and say, okay, if coal is a good resource for America, let's tell that story to the rest of America. There was a presentation last fall basically saying that if you shut down every fossil fuel plant in the U.S., it contributes less than 1% of the CO2 worldwide. So you'd think about it. If that's where our fossil fuel power plants are in the U.S., maybe we ought to hit pause, think about how that becomes part of our energy infrastructure, and then couple that with the renewable resources that we're developing as well. So that I think is a smarter play, because to your point, if you just say no to wind, those investors are going to take that energy, that electric generating facility, and build it in Iowa or Nebraska or some other state. And that's what happened in McLean County. GRE took $1.6 billion of investment and sent it to Minnesota.
Well, and if I'm the landowner and I'm looking at some of my plots of land there that, you know what, I might not have a lot of need for this, or, you know, I can't really develop this, and you have a wind energy company saying, look, we want to develop. In essence, you got this moment, you have a county commission say, not in our backyard, and now there's been times where you've got the North Dakota lawmakers trying to say, not in our backyard either. Yeah. And Bob, I know I said I don't like this whole pitting coal against wind, because I think there needs to be, you know, all the above, and I do mean that. That's not just a talking point on a brochure. But where does this balance come? You're involved with wind energy. Does the wind energy believe that coal still has a prominent place in energy development?
Well, I think the industry does. I think the wind industry gets frustrated that you know, we're viewed as sort of the bad guys in North Dakota because of the coal industry and the loss of market share and the jobs that are being threatened. We understand that, but what my clients have advocated all along is, let's be smart about how we develop electricity generation in North Dakota. Here's the point. North Dakota is part of 20-some different states' electric market. MISO goes east to 15 different states. SPP goes west and south to 14 states. We sell into those states, and so rather than fight about who's going to get what part of the North Dakota pie, it would be a lot smarter and frankly, we need state leaders, legislators, the governor, PSC, everybody to get into the same boat and figure out how do we build more electric generating facilities and capacities in North Dakota so we can sell more of it to Michigan and Arkansas and Missouri. That's really the smarter play.
Bob, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Landowners. If I'm a landowner, if I'm a landowner, I have the possibility of getting 2, 3, 4, 5 turbines on my land. That over a period of 25 years, that makes an enormous amount of difference in my household and whether I stay in business.
Bob, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'll let you get back after it there. The big argument, or one of the big arguments, is that wind energy just simply isn't reliable. Give me your answer to that, your response.
Well, that's not true, because wind energy has proven reliable because MISO and SPP have both rolled wind energy into their generating facilities region-wide. And just because wind isn't blowing in Williams County in North Dakota doesn't mean it's not blowing in Grand Forks County or Hettinger County or Slow County or some other part. And then you apply that same thinking across 14 states. So if you've got 12 wind farms in Nebraska, those are all generating. And here's something else that the public doesn't understand. Wind is dispatchable as well, meaning it can go up or it can go down. People think that, oh, if the wind is blowing 15 miles an hour, that's what the wind turbine generates. That's not the way they're designed, that they can operate at 75% of capacity. So if the system needs more electricity, they have the ability to do that. And so the system energy, electric energy from wind is reliable system-wide. Just because it's not blowing in Williams County doesn't mean it's not reliable.
Yeah, well, I was glad you had the opportunity to explain that, because that's been the drumbeat, is it's not reliable. We need to go to others that have proven that they are. Bob, I appreciate your time. I look forward to visiting with you again soon, all right?
Likewise, Tyler. Good seeing you. Take care.
Yeah, you do the same there. Bob Harms, ladies and gentlemen. Wind energy, it's got to be a part of the grid along with coal, along with that natural gas we didn't get a chance to talk about today either. When we come back, we're going to wrap up, tell you where you can get registered if you want to get that vaccination shot right here in North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Down the Road, almost wrapping up here for you today. I'm Tyler Axness. Joel Heitkamp will be back tomorrow to take you on further down the road and get you into that weekend. But 1 year ago is when the world really changed for every single one of you watching right now, because the pandemic hit North Dakota. And now here we are 1 year later. Cases are starting to go down. They're not eliminated. Hospitalizations are starting to go down. Tragically, we're still losing some of our fellow North Dakotans, but light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccination process here in North Dakota has been top notch. I believe we're leading the nation in the per capita of individuals that have been vaccinated. And I want to use this opportunity to let you know there are resources. If you're wondering where and how you can get that shot or those 2 shots in your arm, there's resources. But it's going to take picking up the phone, making a phone call, or logging online and going and getting registered. And you can do so at a variety of different places. You can go visit with your clinic, because I know some of those clinics are putting the injections in as well for those vaccinations. There are some pharmacies that are doing some of these vaccinations as well. And for One Stop Shop, I know that the state of North Dakota, the public health, is allowing you to go there, find where vaccines are, see if there's any available. You can get registered for a wait list. I know where I am sitting right now on the eastern side of the state, in Fargo here, you're able to go onto the Fargo Cast Public Health and get registered. And if you want to and you're willing to go get that vaccination, please go get registered. Because spring's here, and I know that some of you right now are watching, looking out and saying, look, I just got 6 or 7 inches of snow overnight. Spring doesn't feel like it's here. It's around the corner. And with that comes baseball. And with that comes outdoor concerts. Your small town streets where you can watch a live band on the back of a flatbed trailer. That is all right around the corner. And to make sure that everyone is comfortable and as safe as possible doing that, use this tool. Go get vaccinated if you want to. And I know not everybody watching right now wants to get that shot in their arm, and that's their right to not do that. But if you want to, it is here. You just have got to go get registered and get on that list, and they'll let you know when it's time to get in the rig, get on over, and you can get that shot. And you know what? It's about a peace of mind as well. And go give that individual you haven't seen in over a year one of those long hugs or a good firm handshake that you haven't been able to for quite some time. Folks, that is it for me today. I'll be back sometime down the road here with you. Joel Heitkamp again will be back in tomorrow. We'll look forward to visiting with you next time. I'm Tyler Axness, creator writer of NDExplains.com, also radio host here on the eastern side of the state. Until then, it's been good riding with you.